for me, it comes down to the protagonists.
Yeah.
And I love Breaking Bad. Like anyone who says Breaking Bad is a top 5 or like maybe the top best show of all time, I'm not going to really put up an argument.
Yeah.
But when I started watching Better Call Saul, I realized that I was more drawn to the drama of the show because I find personally Jimmy to be a more tragic character. And you know who gave me the vocabulary for it? Was Mike in an episode you were watching recently.
Really?
So the episode where Mike helps that nerdy guy selling the pharmaceuticals to Nacho.
Yeah.
He goes, there are good bad guys and there are bad guys.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's arc in Better Call Saul is a good bad guy.
Yeah.
And what happens when you watch Breaking Bad is as the show unfolds, you realize this has always been Walt.
Yeah.
Walt has always been a bad guy.
Yeah.
And the cancer was just the spark that lit the match to let him kind of unleash it. But that bitterness and that hubris was always there in him.
It was always in him.
It was always in there.
Yeah.
And then the more you watch Breaking Bad, the more information you get, the more you realize that, oh, Walt had outs. He had outs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he didn't take them because he just needed an opportunity like this to arise where he could prove in a very hubris way that he could do this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I see Walter as, like the show does, this Ozymandias, this statuesque, great thing that is doomed to just be swallowed by time, because that was the whole metaphor with Ozymandias. It's like, yeah, you can have the hubris to build this empire to be this great man of legend, but it's all going to go away and you're going to be left with nothing.
Right.
And that's its own type of tragedy.
Right.
But I find it more compelling to watch Jimmy's type of tragedy, which is the tragedy of a guy who wants to do the right thing, but his environment failed him. And being like this Jacob and Esau tension between him and Chuck, where, Chuck is Esau. He's the firstborn. He did everything right.
Yeah. He's
going to inherit everything. And Jimmy is the kind of the guy who likes to trick people and take the shortcut. But when he does finally start to do things right, no one trusts him. He kind of gets failed.
Yeah.
And that is a more empathetic type of tragedy that when things happen in the show, like especially things between Chuck and Jimmy, it hurts so much more than anything that happened with Walt.
Yeah. You just feel for Jimmy on a level because, well, first of all, I think Jimmy's character is just more relatable. Like who hasn't had a moment where they just tried so hard to do the right thing and just had it blow up in their face. Like everyone in life has felt that way at some point or another with like either a big failure or a small failure. You felt like you did the best you could, but it still wasn't enough. And that's just like, that pulls people in because everybody has felt that way at some point. And it does just break your heart whenever you see Jimmy and you see their childhood and like what they went through and like kind of how they grew up and how that relationship was growing up. And you kind of understand why Chuck is the way he is. And you understand why Jimmy is the way he is, which is why it hurts so much for them. Yeah. Like as an audience member, you care for Jimmy more, but you see Chuck's perspective a little bit.
Yeah. Not that Breaking Bad doesn't examine like morality. Yeah. But at least when it comes to the character of Walter, it's not really interrogating like his moral compass, because it's just so obvious once you get in a couple seasons in that like Walter is just going to take the path that gives him the most power and gives him the most ability to chase his hubris and to prove that he can be, Heisenberg. Yeah. Whereas with Jimmy, like he is constantly trying to get back onto the right track. Yeah. But again, like I said, like everything around him sometimes fails him and it pushes him into these areas where he makes these moral things where like he did the wrong thing in service of the right thing. Right. Whereas Walter does the wrong thing in service of only himself. Yeah. And he tries to lie to himself that he's doing this to protect his family, but it's so obvious to everyone that's not true.
Yeah.
But it is true in Jimmy's case that he is actually trying to do the right thing. He's trying to help the elderly, his elderly customers, his clients, and he's trying to help Kim.
Yeah.
And he's trying to help Hamlin McGill, but he does the slightly wrong thing to do it.
And he really is trying to help Chuck too.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, after everything Chuck has done to him, he really is trying to help Chuck still.
It is a widely praised show, but there is a contingent online that kind of thinks it's a little bit more slower paced than Breaking Bad and a little bit more boring. What's your take on that?
I would say that in the early seasons, I say early seasons, but like season 1, the direction kind of wasn't as clear as Breaking Bad's direction was.
Yep.
You kind of couldn't see okay, so at the end of the season, we have this that we're working towards. Breaking Bad, it was kind of unique because it was very clear what the goal was.
Yeah. The whole story is inherent in the premise.
Yeah. It's get money before I die.
Yep.
For my family.
Do whatever it takes to get money before I die.
Yeah. And so from episode 1 on Breaking Bad, you're like, man, I want this guy to be able to like get this done. Like I want him to be able to do it. You know, I want him to be able to overcome these obstacles. So every episode you're watching, like, come on, Walt, like you can, like, come on. Yes. Like you did it. Like keep going. Whereas Better Call Saul is a little more
the end game.
You don't know what that end goal is yet. It's they play very close to the chest because they have been playing scenes of Jimmy working at Cinnabon for 3 seasons.
Yeah. Those are always great to start the season.
They are, but it is very much like, okay, so we still don't know why he's here, what he's like what he's doing, how he got there. Is this after Breaking Bad? Is it before Breaking Bad? Like where does this fall? So it's you still really don't have that like end goal in mind, whereas Breaking Bad I think did a much better job of having that immediate motivation.
Well, I think exactly what you're saying is Breaking Bad had more of that wider populist appeal where everything that happens in Breaking Bad is like dire stakes. Like especially with
life or death.
There is a cartel presence in Better Call Saul, but wisely they keep it to like the cursory kind of edges. Whereas in Breaking Bad, like every interaction Walter has, like someone could kill him and people are constantly dying, and it has that more higher like stakes. Whereas Better Call Saul, like you said, is a little bit more interpersonal drama. And so they have different approaches there. And so like I think when the dust settles, Breaking Bad will always be the more popular show. Because it just has the higher stakes. And that's great. But I think Better Call Saul, and part of it is that Vince Gilligan and his team had just finished 5 years of perfecting their craft. And they got to take that to Better Call Saul.
My takeaway and kind of having this conversation is Better Call Saul is a different show than Breaking Bad. You could watch them separately and get just as much from them. The one doesn't rely on the other. One doesn't hold the other up. They both work, alone. And I'll say that they're just very different shows.
Well, but I would say, how rare is it that a prequel can stand on its own?
Definitely.
That without
callbacks to the hit show, and that is a huge achievement. And I think that Better Call Saul focuses much more on that interpersonal relationship aspect of it. It dives a little deeper into like kind of what's going on under the surface of those relationships and the subtext of just where does jealousy come from? Where does this like family conflict come from? Like where does it start and how does it resolve? And Breaking Bad is really a show about one man's battle with himself and what you're willing to do to prove to yourself that you're worthy.
Yeah, for me, like I've already said, I think it just comes down to our protagonists. And I think as time goes on, I'll always find Jimmy more compelling and more tragic, because Breaking Bad is a tragedy of hubris and of pride. And I feel like Better Call Saul is a tragedy of maybe not innocence, but like the loss of potential.
Yeah.
And I just find that a little bit more compelling, the idea of this guy who has promise, has potential, and gives up on it and loses it, as opposed to the turn in Breaking Bad of just like the tragedy of like pride and hubris, and how that amounts to just nothing in the end.
Yeah.
Both great on their own merits, but just personally, I am affected more by Jimmy's tragedy. So yeah, just friendly reminder, you can go to patreon.com/whyitsgreat and you can support both the YouTube channel and our podcast, The Professional Appreciators. If you are watching the clips on YouTube, hey, this actually wasn't the full discussion. You can go to the episode in the links below on Spotify and Apple and listen to our full discussion, where you heard all of our amazing pitches for more Breaking Bad spinoffs.
Yeah, Young Chuck.
Yeah, Young Mike.
Young Mike.
Young Walter Jr.
Young Walt Jr.
Yeah, so I mean, you get all that great content if you listen to the full episode. And if you're listening via podcast, click the link in the description and you can go straight to the YouTube page. Shout out to Evan's dad for reminding me to put all the YouTube links.
There you go.
In the podcast feeds.
There you go. Yeah.
So
thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. So now you have easy access to that week. See you later.